What's going on, Buffs Nation? It's David here again, talking CU Buffs football, Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, and everything in between. Coming at you with another unique video here on a Sunday afternoon. I said earlier this week that I was going to be doing a pretty fun segment based on if I could create a schedule for 2023 for the Buffs, create a conference from scratch, kind of that NCAA football video game vibe. How would I build this? How would I put it together? Who are the teams that would be in the conference? Who would be the out of conference games? And really the point of this is to educate on some preferences personally that I have for the Buffs, as well as educate maybe a little bit about traditional rivalries and records and all of that if you're just now jumping into following Colorado football for the first time. So of course, I want to hear what you think. If you could build a schedule for the 2023 season from scratch, none of this TV money matters, conferences, all of that. You get to build your own. Let me know, how would you build your schedule for the Buffs? Or if you're a fan of another team, let's hear it. How would you build your schedule for your favorite team? So of course, before I get started, would appreciate if you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button. I try to give you daily Buffs content on what's going on with the team and Coach Prime. We're on our way to 1,000. But of course, if you've already subscribed, a like, a comment, that's going to push this out to other college football fans. I'd greatly appreciate that. But let's go ahead and get started. So we'll start with the out-of-conference games. Now, I did name this conference, I guess before I get started, I did name this conference the Pac. Maybe just to trigger some of y'all Big 12 fans or whatever. No, I'm just playing. But I did name this the Pac, the Prime Athletic Conference. And we're going to be playing prime opponents. But of course, games 1 through 3, those are going to be our out-of-conference games. First one, starting out with the Rocky Mountain Showdown, Colorado State. This is a game that should be played every year for the Buffs and CSU. It's important to have an in-state rival. We have ours with the CSU Rams, and we are CU 67-22-2 against the CSU Rams all time. This game most recently has been played, of course, at Mile High Stadium, but now we're going to host this game in Boulder this next year. That's going to be phenomenal. But this is a game that needs to be played every year. Sadly, might not be anymore. Opponent number 2. Now, I kicked them out of the conference because they actually left our conference right now, and that's USC. I've always wanted to see CU stick it to USC, but we are actually worse than I had thought. I thought maybe we were like, an 11, 12, or 13, something like that against USC all time. No, we are 0-16. That is terrible. And I would love for the Buffs to get a win against USC, Lincoln Riley, and all those guys before they bolt to the Big Ten. Game number 3. This is kind of a surprise. Has to do with a little bit of my biases towards the state of Texas. It is Texas Tech. We have our Sean Lewis high-paced offense in altitude going up against the air raid offense in Texas Tech. They've always had extremely entertaining offenses, put out a lot of NFL talent. And really, when you were talking about breaking down Big 12 fans, I've always enjoyed Texas Tech Red Raider fans. So that would be the out-of-conference games. An honorable mention was the University of Michigan Wolverines. We are 1-4 against them all time. Again, check that out. Cordell Stewart's Hail Mary at the end of the game in the 90s got us that one win, which was insane. That full game is on YouTube if you want to check it out. But let's get into conference play. Week 1 of conference play. I mean, how much more sense does it make? Let's go to Florida State. Let's play the Seminoles. Again, Prime coming back to play his school, his old-time school. We love that. Again, there's a little bit of drama with, Travis Hunter committing to Coach Prime earlier. That would be a phenomenal game to see. That would be an exciting game, seeing his return to Tallahassee and all that. Week 2, let's stay within the state of Florida. I think right now there's a little bit of tension maybe between some of the fans. University of Miami Hurricanes playing the CU Buffs. Would love to see that matchup, especially with us convincing Cormani McLean to come to Boulder. And, there's already that rivalry there with Coach Prime and the University of Miami. I'll also say that Miami is one of the teams that I like to follow, I like to cheer for. I think college football is better when they're at their best. All right, now week 3, let's go back to Texas. Would love to see the CU Buffs play University of Texas Longhorns, whether their quarterback is Arch Manning or Quinn Ewers this year. They're going to have a great team, and I don't think people realize how close they really were towards the college football playoff, really qualifying for that. I know it was a pretty competitive year in the Big 12. Texas just had a couple games where they let it get away, and if they're able to finish, they're going to be a team within the college football playoff contention again this year. We are 7-12 against them all time. Would love to see us take on the Longhorns again, old Big 12 rivals. Speaking of the Big 12, would love to see us play Texas A&M. That would be week 4 of conference play. We're 6-4 against them all time. And if you've lived in Texas, the Aggies are kind of a cult, man. They really get under the skin of pretty much everybody else in Texas. So I would love to see CU beat them again. We had a great chance a couple years ago when they came out here to Mile High Stadium, and our offense just fell flat. But our defense played great, and it was a shame that we couldn't get that win out here in Boulder. Week 5. Now we don't really technically have a real heated Pac-12 rival, but there's 2 teams that I really care about beating within the real Pac-12 conference. One of them is actually Oregon State. I love Oregon State. I love their fans. And we've actually played very competitive games with Oregon State throughout our time so far in the Pac-12. 6-7 against them all time. They're bringing back a great team this year. Would love to see that. Speaking of other state schools, let's go back to a traditional Big 12 rival in Kansas State. Would love to see the Buffs play Kansas State. They're probably our most direct rival from the Big 12, in my opinion. 45-20-1 against them all time. Would love that. Number 7, Notre Dame. Who doesn't want to play Notre Dame? Who doesn't want to knock the socks off of Notre Dame? Again, we're 2-3 against them all time. Had some very close bowl matchups against them in the 80s, going into the 90s. And we were able to secure our national championship in 1990 with the victory over them. Would love to see that. So now we get into the November games. We got 2 games left. Number 8, let's just get right to it. Probably our most heated rival of the year. What better time to play this game than in November, regardless of site, and that's the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Again, 20-49-2 against them all time. Won the last 2 matchups, though. College football is better when this rivalry is played every year. Would love to see them in a create-your-own conference for the Buffs. And then lastly, let's get to it. The Rumble of the Rockies is actually going to be a real thing this year. It's exciting. This is the year that this rivalry really kicks off to a new level. That's playing the Utah Utes. 32-34-3 against them all time. Again, most of those matchups came like forever ago, like 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago. Ultimately, since joining the pack, we've struggled against Utah. They've knocked our socks off. But this year, we're going to give them a run for their money. So I had a lot of fun with this. I want to know what your thoughts are. If you could create a schedule for the Buffs, who would you put in it? Who would be in your conference? Who would be in your non-conference? Let me hear it. Again, thanks so much for checking out my video. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and Go Buffs.